that way and I was not here for that project, but for the 41 Hill Street, when they renovated the interior of the existing movie theater and redid the parking lot, was a practical matter in that the condition had to be forward-looking because they knew a site plan was coming for 71 Hill Street and the cross-access was going, they didn't want to force 71 Hill Street in a particular direction in terms of where, and wanted to allow them to have the most viable cross-access opportunity. So this is now the time to resolve that. Additionally, another comment on some of the just configuration of the site. We did have our engineer do a truck turning radius and analysis of the garbage enclosure and access for the dumpster. And they noted that the dumpster was, access point is narrower than the truck, and that this is an issue in that they don't quite have enough space there with those two compact spaces on either side to facilitate adequate access to the dumpster. The recommendation was that one of those compact spaces could be potentially moved somewhere else on the site. There does appear to be some space near the pool area on the other side of the lot that could potentially accommodate that space, keeping them at the required number of minimum spaces while still allowing sufficient access to the dumpster area, which will be an important access point for a 40-unit hotel and 8 affordable housing units. There's likely to be a very needed amenity on that site is going to the dumpster. Let me just look at the couple other things. There were a number of engineering comments that are details related to things like there's a couple of drainage areas where the spacing between the structures is still not sufficient. There was a couple of comments related to the spacing of where the drainage structures are placed relative to the existing structures. When a catch basin is installed, a larger hole must be dug to fit it. It doesn't go straight down. It actually has to be a much bigger hole. So there was concern about compromising the foundation of some of the proposed structures and the existing structure. So just the suggestion that those be removed, relocated away from those structures, and also the village right-of-way on Hill Street, where it's one of the structures was very proximate to the village right-of-way. Without getting into any of the more detailed drainage plan, I would also mention something I'm not certain if we discussed any further last week, at the last meeting, but was just the pedestrian access concerns, that there was a lot of safety measures there was a lot of safety concern expressed at prior planning board meetings, and it was just a point raised not to recommend any particular course, but to just raise whether the planning board wanted to consider additional pedestrian safety measures within this site. With that, I think that other than, I don't want to go point by point through every engineering comment unless you would like me to, but I think those are the main kind of highlights.
I know the applicant here is interested in, as are we, moving this application along as quickly as possible. I asked you to review this stuff in the meeting to give them a head start to respond to this stuff. Are you going to be able to have this stuff typed up, your engineer's comments typed up and sent to the applicant?
These engineering comments have been shared now. They were shared today.
Okay. All right.
They were shared about an hour before this meeting.
They were shared. Yeah.
Yes, they were shared.
Please, public hearing's closed, okay?
Well, we're going to have comments.
We can get, when you're recognized, you can have comments.
Okay.
Until then,
fine.
There are no comments, okay? This is a working session for the board.
Yeah.
There's an appropriate time for you to speak, and that's when you can talk. So that's shared. I have one question. You said on the 71 Hill Street side, the cross-access is 24 feet. On the movie theater, it's 20 feet. My understanding is the theaters owners are being less than cooperative on this. How do we fix that so that it's 24 feet on both sides?
So I can verify. I have to look at the requirements of the code for the drive aisles. I actually, while 24 feet is preferable, 12-foot lanes in each direction from a driving perspective, there is an argument to be made that here in this cross-access scenario where there had been some concern expressed about people using it as a speedway across, that having a slightly narrower path, if it's permitted, an argument may be made that it could lead to driving more slowly and caution in that intersection, in that cross-access. So I'll verify whether that is an option within the code without seeking a variance. Otherwise, it's the challenge of a condition that's effectively affects two lots, is that if we need them to match, we need both owners to come to the table and be cooperative about it.
Okay. All right. Hannah, any comments, questions?
Well, on the plan, it shows existing curb gut to be modified for fire truck access. I don't see the modification there. What is that? I mean, what
You're
should
talking
that
about the
be?
one on the Viridian Way side you're asking about.
Right. The one that's closest to the, to Hill Street. What is that requirement? Alex, do you know?
It's probably based on the fire marshal's specifications for turning radius for the fire apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
But we can get an answer to that.
Well, we need to see that it's in there and that it can be accessed by fire trucks easily.
So would you suggest referring it then to the fire marshal to confirm?
I can speak to him and make sure
Yeah.
that he's comfortable with it.
Hannah, did you have any other questions?
Well, I've always been concerned with the pedestrian walkways. That's one of my issues, and I think some of that's been addressed in Lisa's comments, but I think they were using the theaters, we would have to have steps down to the theaters, and I don't see that.
So if we've got to tweak the dumpster access, that's going to cause a result in a little redesign there. I don't have an issue as long as it's not a code issue, Lisa, on the width of 20 versus 24, which might give us a little bit more parking space. So assuming that doesn't run afoul of village code, does anyone have any issues with shrinking that 24 to 20?
And it may not be an issue. I know that was shown as a future cross-access on the latest site plan, but I think there's an area like 50 to 60 feet wide that they haven't striped any parking spaces. So
Yeah.
that there may be enough flexibility
Okay,
on the
so-
sites to make something
So I
work.
think the message is that the board's willing to be flexible with that cross-access. There needs to be cross-access if there's 20 feet existing there and it doesn't run afoul of village code.
Yeah, and of course, it should be verified, with the existing conditions.
Yeah.
So, because the proposed site plan may or may not have been
Yeah.
exactly what was constructed, and it hasn't been field verified, or, the existing, and the topography there as well.
Yeah, okay, so there's some flexibility there that may help on the dumpster solution, dumpster access challenge, and the related parking lot size that, or lack thereof, that will result in reconfiguring that. Bill, did you have any
No.
questions?
No additional comments.
You good?
Yeah, no, I think that was, unless the board had any specific questions, or Kim, I don't know if you had any other comments about legal documentation or anything.
Nope.
Hey, John, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you guys, at past board meetings, talked about a cross-access easement on this?
Yeah, we've said we're willing to provide it.
Okay. No, I mean, was there anything drafted, any documentation?
Well, no,
Back and forth.
at the last meeting, what I did was I brought to the board's attention the fact that on October 20th, 2025, well, anyway, the movie theater's site plan was conditioned, and when I left this meeting the last time, I felt pretty confident that the board understood that we would be treated in the same way. And the movie theaters, and I don't see any reason why that we shouldn't be. The movie theater's approval was conditioned upon submission of a cross-access easement for vehicular and pedestrian traffic to the adjacent parcel at a location to be agreed upon by the planning board, and the recording of same against the premises and 43 Hill Street in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk. So that was a condition to their approved site plan. I haven't gotten calls back from the neighbors. The engineers are asking me to go on to a site that I can't trespass on with the surveyors. I'm more than willing to continue to engage, and I will have to engage with the board and the neighbor in order to move this forward and prior to getting any ability to occupy this. But it's not the time now to hold this up. And I'm going to ask Dee Dee to talk about the fact that the funding crunch for this. But I do want to bring some things to the board's attention. So the public hearing was closed for decision. We have some comments. I think what I am struggling with here is the approval flow and the structure and the functions and the conditions. And the way this application, what I'd like to do is ask the board to approve this conditionally at the next meeting. And Dee Dee's going to explain to you why. All of these things can be taken care of. It's a very strange, it's a little bit of a parallel universe for me to be sitting here and having a board insist that every single item in an engineer's report be taken care of prior to a site plan approval. And a site plan approval is not a building permit. And a site plan approval in itself doesn't allow me to construct. But I need to be able, for financing reasons and for other reasons which Dee Dee will explain to you in terms of some agencies, to be able to show people an approval, a conditional approval. So every time we come here, there are additional engineering changes, but the suggestion is that until we get down to the very, very, very crossing the T's and dotting the I's, there's not going to be a site plan approval. It's very strange for me. I just want for the board's consideration, just how this is typically dealt with. I'm going to send you. I'm going to just submit for your consideration a site plan approval that I recently obtained for a client of mine in the town of Southampton for the town planning board for 78 affordable units, a septic treatment, a sewage treatment plant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. General conditions. This is the approved site plan. General conditions 5B, town engineer review and approval of the project prior to commencement of work and prior to signature of plans. This is a much broader project. What did the town planning board do? It did what most planning boards do, because you still have me until we work out the planning, the engineer comments and the other comments. You still have me, but I need to move this on. I need to get this financed. This has been a long time coming. I certainly didn't think after a trustee approval, an ARB approval, a zoning board of appeals approval, that this would be taking so very, very long. But what's the remedy? The remedy is to condition this on final engineer sign-off prior to commencement of the work and prior to signature of your plans. Because I'm not getting away with anything. I still have to come back and have to work all this stuff out. But it's really creating significant issues with lenders and agencies that we need in order to do this. So, and clearly we're being held to a different and higher standard than the movie theater, who you said, here's your site plan approval, But you didn't even ask them to show them what the cross-access agreement was going to be. You know, here's your site plan approval.
Can I interrupt there? How could we have asked the theater to do that when we didn't even have an application in front of us for next door? We knew something was coming, we knew we wanted cross-access, and we figured, work it out.
Okay,
Right.
which they're not.
But
Okay.
the details
I
of
don't-
which,
it's-
until
but-
you have
but-
two parties in front of you, you can't work out.
With the easement, you are not losing that ability. With conditioning this approval on, I'm gonna have to file an easement, which is gonna, hasn't been filed by the movie theater, and they're occupying the property. Okay, and here I am just trying to key this up for funding and other approvals, and I can't get anywhere. But the folks to the east of me are literally underway and in operation, and they haven't even filed the easement. So talk about being held to a different and higher standard. Approve it. Require me to file an easement exactly the way you and your council tell me that it has to be, and I can't commence construction, and I can't, get my site plan actually signed by you until I come to terms with you, but at least I can show these agencies and these lenders that I've got something. Because I don't have to tell you, you know how this works. They want to see something, the promises. Yeah, we're in the board, we're almost there. Yeah, we're in the board, we're almost there. I mean, so the funding has taken on a different aspect given what's happening with interest rates, much more than we thought would be. We're just trying to keep this alive as a viable plan. If you require the same condition that was required of the neighbors to the east, I still have to come and deal with you because I can't start construction, and I can't even ask you to sign my site plan until I've come to terms with you. And why am I being held to a different standard, which is what I am? And I can't get a call back. I think, Terry, you had a question to ask about that, but I would ask you to take this into account. We'll try to see if we can move that other parking space somewhere. Bob says there's plenty of space there, but if Lisa's engineer feels better about it, let me see if we can do that. I mean, but the other thing on here, ARB approval of the fence, there's none required, and I think Alex confirmed that the last time, so I don't know why that's still there. We'll look for that other parking space, give it to you well in advance of the 17th. One-way vehicular traffic, was vetted by the fire marshal. We're not going to do that. This has been asked and answered before. And
Hey, John, where are you on that?
oh, I'm so sorry, Kim. I'm on page 2.
Okay. The number, 105.
Parking. We'll see if we can move that other, compact space. So Lisa's engineer feels more comfortable. We'll do that. No ARB necessary for the fence. We're not going to make this one-way parking. We're not going to have raised crosswalks. We've talked about all this stuff before. And cross-access, we've said we're going to deal with it. The clients aren't happy about it. I don't think the movie theater is happy about it, but they had agreed to it as a condition of their site plan, and we're here saying we'll agree to it. Just want the same language as was approved in the past. And all the other comments in this engineering comments can simply be dealt with the way that the town of Southampton and the way the village in the past has done this, which is town engineer review and approval of project prior to commencement or work and prior to signature of plans. So if I don't come to terms with everybody and make everybody happy, guess what? I ain't building this. So it's not like it's not like I'm asking you for a building permit, And Dee Dee, can you just talk a little bit, if it's okay with the board, about why timing is an issue here in terms of some of the upcoming things, if you may, and just introduce yourself.
Yeah, I would like to hear about the timing issues.
Yeah, thanks.
John, can I just, was it pre-op or final, this town one? Was it pre-op or final?
This was a site plan approval.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was a final.
Final, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee Godhelf for 71 Hill Street. We actually thought we were starting construction today, the beginning of November. Not only is our business seasonal within this village, but we're trying to be a good neighbor to the whole community and do the demolition and the heavy construction during the so-called off-season, which we don't acknowledge we have. But it's a little slower and slightly easier now, notwithstanding our bridge. We have 2 board meetings coming up. One of them is on the 20th of November for financing for some incentives from the Industrial Development Authority, and another meeting is on December 13th. And so we do have 3 out of our 4 required resolutions. If there's any way it's possible to have a resolution to vote on at the next meeting, subject to whatever needs to be done. I mean, we've certainly tried to get all of the information, but it's like raking leaves. You know, we feel like we've raked the leaves, we've responded, and then some more leaves are falling out of it. But we're clearly here to do whatever is necessary and required to make this work. So that's my timing issue. And if we miss that window of opportunity, we don't want to do demolition in May, June, July, and we don't want to be starting construction to finish up in October. We would lose the entire season, and it's better for all, community included. The second thing, I just want to reiterate on our neighbor. We love the movie theater. They're doing wonderful things for all of us, but they don't want to talk to us. We've reached out. They're not responding, but we share lots of programming together. We can't unilaterally by ourselves make an arrangement with our next door neighbor on a cross-access. We've spoken about this earlier. Neither of us feels that this is safe. The people from the police department have said this is not safe. What we're going to do it. So whether we are matched up, I have pictures on my phone. Whatever they had, we agreed to match. Then we were told we needed to be 24 feet, so we said, okay, we'll make ours wider. But there's no dialogue, and there's no possibility for us to be bringing them into a 2-way meeting. So potentially we ask maybe that the planning board or the village trustees, that someone would bring us all to the table to arrive at a good solution that's workable and that's safe and that will not hold us up on one side of this fence. Are there any questions? Or
When's your IDA meeting?
it's the first board meeting is on November 20th, which
then-
just gives us a whole 72 hours after the November 17th planning meeting.
And you said there was a second meeting in December?
Well, we have to go through 2 and possibly 3 meetings of the board. One is introductory. We have a meeting actually tomorrow morning with them also.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Oh, this is the Industrial Development
the
Authority,
idea
and
as
there are
well,
some
okay.
incentives that they can provide to ameliorate the situation with the costs that have exceeded lots of things in the last 2 years from when we started.
And
well-
what was you said the first one was November 20th?
November
and the second
20th,
one-
and they're just asking for the resolutions from our four village boards, if that's possible. And then
second
the
was
follow-up meeting
December.
is December 13th,
Thank you.
and then there's another meeting in January, but again, from those meetings, we can't do anything until we have that resolution. There's some clauses that prohibit we can't finance, we can't do construction, we can't do demolition. We must have that in advance of any work that begins on the property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again,
Thank you.
it's all doable, and doable in a way that protects your desire primarily to have the cross-access there. We're committed to it. We could have, we would just like the same language, and then we would have.
That's what I was curious. Did you already spit language on this?
I suggested, oh, did we?
You might have.
Yeah,
You
we
did?
did.
Okay.
We did. Yeah, we
All
did.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We did. We probably just parroted, I think we parroted what was
Okay.
done to the property to the east.
Okay.
October
right, thank you.
24th, yeah. So that's what we're asking for. And we'd ask that you take that under advisement and consider a conditional approval so that we can get on our way at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any,
Sorry, the condition to be satisfied when? When would the condition be satisfied?
Oh, I'll read it to you. I'm just parroting what we've done in the town. Prior to commencement of work and prior to signature of the plans. So I can't even get, you'll give us a conditional site plan approval, but then I can't do diddly with that until you've actually signed off on the actual site plan and stamped it approved. And the condition here was commencement of work and prior to commencement of work and prior to signature of plans. So you've got, I ain't going anywhere without your
No,
approval.
but the issues addressed in this memo have to be addressed at some point, before you get your.
Oh, yeah, that's what I say.
I'm not sure what, I guess that what you're getting is you're getting a resolution approving it, but you still have to get this done before you start.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the whole concept of it.
Yeah.
That's the whole concept.
can anything? No. Look, we're very sympathetic to the timing on this, and we'd like to move this along, but we do need to know what we're approving. Now, some of the engineering comments, I think, can be on the come, right? Others, like how this cross-access is going to work specifically,
Right.
need to be worked out, okay? I don't know what the planning board can do to help on this. I mean, you asked us 2 or 3 meetings ago to help. We're happy to help. I'm not so sure we carry that big of a stick on this one. But to the extent that we can be helpful in getting the 2 parties talking, we'd like to be helpful.
My name is Terrence Moen. I'm a principal of 71 Hill Street and the project manager for the development of the new project. We all agree that a cross easement is a 2-party agreement. It takes, the property owner on one side and the property owner on the other to both concur with and sign the same document. May I ask?
A mirror document. Sorry, yeah.
Whatever. I mean, a document that says, we have a right to go across yours, you have a right to go across ours. The resolution approving the adjacent property had conditions saying, you have to solve this, you have to enter into this agreement prior to the issuance of the C of O or / compliance. The C of O has been issued for the adjacent property.
No. A prior CO was issued because it was always a movie theater. That's not the problem. The problem is that the building permits were issued. There hasn't been a certificate of occupancy that followed that, yet it's being fully occupied.
John,
So-
can you talk to the microphone
Is
when you're
that fair to
speaking?
say,
Thanks.
Alex? There were building permits that were issued
That-
for improvements
Right.
that
Okay.
are being utilized right now.
So Alex, can I ask,
It's correct? I don't want to put words. in
They're,
your
well, they're
mouth.
building permits that are still open, that don't have
They're
a CO.
open,
Okay.
but the facility is being fully used, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
okay, so from an owner's perspective, if I can't use my property, I have to do something in order to make it, to get that box checked so I can get my property opened. If that's not a C of O, I don't know what is, but there are other permits that are open. What, the other permits are for what?
It's for site work and for fire systems, I believe.
Okay, so, but they can open and run their theater as a theater. They can use it economically. So the impetus for an owner to comply with the requirements or the requests of the village to enter into this cross easement are no longer economic. They're continuing to allow their property to be used economically. What has the village, since you've known, and we've discussed this for the last several weeks, what has the village said to the adjacent owner, demanding that you come to a table and discuss it, requesting that you come to a table and you negotiate it? What has the village, what has the planning department, what has the building department said to the adjacent owner to induce them to come to the table and negotiate out this requirement that the planning board's saying, we want to know what we're approving? So what has the village done to induce our neighbor to come to the table?
And it's a condition of their approval.
Right, it's condition of their approval, and they provided an affidavit saying that they would. they
Right,
would
so what
provide
have you
the-
done in the last month? What have you done in the last, since we met two or three meetings ago to say, this is an open item, can you help resolve this? As the village planning director, what has the village department, planning department, building department, what have you done?
I don't know what conversations have happened between building inspectors and other owners. I couldn't speak.
So have you had any conversations with the adjacent owner?
No.
Do you know of any conversations with the adjacent owner saying, come and resolve this?
Like I said, that's not something that I could address.
So you don't know of
Can I make
any?
a suggestion? I understand,
We've called.
you don't want to be held hostage by, I understand that. For some reason, I didn't get a copy of your proposed forced access. If somebody could forward that to me,
Letter of the 14th.
that can be drafted pretty quickly,
Yeah.
because I've done lots of them, you've done lots of them, okay? And then we will make an effort to get in touch with the property owner, the adjacent property owner, and try to get something that you can
Right.
rely on.
So I just request that, since we are subject to an agreement of the adjacent owner, that somehow we not be held hostage, thank you for the words, to the adjacent owner's cooperation in the approval of this process. Because, we're doing everything that we can. We're in good faith, coming to you saying, whatever you want, we will do. And we have shown that flexibility and said, you want a 20, 24, we will agree with that. We think it's the existing, anyway, it doesn't matter what those terms are. But we have been willing to be flexible, we have been cooperative, and we have an uncooperative partner. Please do not hold us hostage to the cooperation or not cooperation of the adjacent owner, because our time is critical.
Yeah,
Thank you.
understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's try and solve as much of this as we can right now. I didn't see the engineering report comments, but I'd like to see those, and I think
Yeah.
the board would like to see
Like,
those.
it was posted for an hour before the meeting, so I
Yeah,
saw it,
so
yeah.
we can make a determination, what, if any of those we need in a site plan, number one. Number two, I'd like to suggest, if it's okay with the board members that are here, that in the next, we update the site plan to show 20 feet on each side, right? And just assume,
Can we do that?
if that,
under the
if
town
that,
think we need to
Let me
make sure
verify in the
it's
town codes and
allowed,
get back
right.
to you. The other, I'm also not sure, I wasn't certain what was the as-built condition and what, and if we're gonna get the owners to the table, we may have the option of having them, they are technically required to make that, they built that access without it being set in
Is
stone.
the intention to leave it where it is on the theater side now and just
Yeah.
match the two
Yeah.
openings, right? So
Well,
that's,
it's a
if
little
that-
bit befuddling. Yes, it's to do 24, okay.
Yeah. In an effort to move this forward, if 20 works, I think we can live with 20.
So let me verify
If
that
we can
within the code.
push this to 24, I'm willing to approve this, having moved it out to, another 4 feet on the come, right? The pedestrian access would require steps, but the steps would be on the applicant's property or on the theater's property? How would that work?
They're on the property in between them, and they already exist.
They exist.
So
We
that
can look at
one-
it.
There-
It's a
that
I
one-
didn't
diagram,
see
I
it
think.
on the
that
plan.
one we can solve.
They are not on the plan because they're on the adjacent property.
Oh, okay,
And
I'm looking
so
at
the
this
steps
crosswalk
are,
here.
because the elevation change from 71 Hill to
Correct.
the adjacent property is 3 to 4 feet.
Over
And so
here.
therefore,
Oh.
those
Oh, I
steps
see,
are
right here,
going
right here,
down from
right?
our property to theirs. And so therefore, those steps are shown on their plan,
So
presumably.
those steps are pre-existing?
Yes.
They
And
are
your
currently
intention is
existing.
to have the crosswalk align with
I
those
see the
existing
walk.
Correct.
steps?
Yeah, we showed that.
Yeah, there's a walkway here, there's a
It's
walk
shown
that goes.
there.
Our
around.
walkway aligns with where the steps currently are.
Right, so I think a lot of work can be done over the next several days to clear a lot of these things up,
That'd be great.
so that we have everything we need and time to review it, not an hour or not the
Yeah, no, no.
afternoon before, right?
But
Like,
what I'd
give
like
us
to do is
5 days
get
at
some-
least
Get
before.
some sort of commitment that this is as an
No,
ongoing.
we're not in the business of promises.
No, we understand.
We will do.
No, we understand your time.
John,
We're sympathetic
please,
to your time deadline.
we're very sympathetic. We want to see this move forward. We will do the best we can, but the updates that we're asking for, the information, there are certain things that we need. I'd like to see the dumpster issue fixed, because that's a big one,
Okay, well,
right?
that's probably-
You can't build a hotel this size and not have,
That's fine.
with housing,
Well,
affordable
our
housing
engineers
without.
disagree, but we'll see if
Right,
we
but,
can make it.
so you've got some time to work that out,
Okay.
okay? But the point is, if you work out these items that we've just discussed, and I don't think there are any others from any board members, right? If you
No.
work these items out in the next few days and get us a plan in time to review it before the next meeting, I think we ought to be in a position to do what you're asking.
Okay, so-
We will commit our engineers to come and meet with H2M, and, but, you know, we just, again, we need their cooperation and a meeting with all the appropriate engineers to go over it, sit around a table and say, this is where this goes, this is where that goes. You know, we don't want to keep passing papers back and forth and back and forth. We want to have a technical meeting amongst technicians to resolve these technical issues.
And I don't want to wait until the day before.
No, I think
that's
that's a
fair.
great idea. Let's get
Right.
it done this week.
Yeah, so if I could, if somebody on your team will reach out with some possible dates and times, or if you want me to reach out with some possible dates and times for
Just tell me when your engineer can meet me, so we'll
MS
make it
Teams meeting, we'll make it something happen for that to walk through these comments. I will say that engineering comments by their nature are iterative. As you change things on the site, it's possible that other things reveal themselves and show themselves, which is why it's not that they're entirely new things, it's that the site is changing and one thing, some of the comments are consistent, they've been there in every review, and some of them, the nature and dimensions and information has changed, and therefore the comments change.
Which is why it's important, I think, to have
but-
this iterative process where engineers talk to engineers and they say, okay, move this here and move that there.
Right,
Look,
okay,
we
fine.
We want that
appreciate the
meeting.
fact that
Right.
some of this is engineer to engineer discussions, and some of this is not, doesn't have a impact on whether we can move this application
Yeah, so
forward. So,
what
but
I'm
we
trying
need
to
to have all that in
what-
front of us so we can evaluate that
What I'm
to
trying
determine
say, it's an
what
important-
matters and what matters less.
Conceptually, I'm going to ask you, as long as these big ticket items can be worked out quickly, there's 25, 30 nits in here, and a conditional approval, which is subject to final
It's
engineering.
microphone, please.
Subject to final engineering sign-off prior to construction, is hyper typical.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, John, you call them nits 25. I haven't had
Take
a
a look at
chance to
them,
review
yeah.
them, okay?
No.
We got them an hour before the meeting, so I can't commit to something that I
Mark,
don't
I'm
know
not
the
asking for you to
details on.
say
Okay.
okay to anything right now. What I'm saying is conceptually, I want to be in a position where, as long as these, for lack of better description, big ticket items are taken care of, if there's another list of 10 or 15 comments or changes or minor things that Lisa's engineer wants, you should have final engineering sign-off a condition of a site plan approval.
Yeah, I understand.
That's
your
all I'm
point.
asking
Yeah, I understand.
conceptually for. That's fine, thank you.
Um,
And so we're gonna, Lisa, you're gonna reach out to our people, see when your engineer can meet, and ask him to do it quickly if we can.
Yeah, I'll see if we can get something on the calendar as soon as possible.
Okay.
Were there any other, Kim, Lisa, Alex, any other items that are big, important items that you want to see, that you would recommend that the board consider prior to moving forward on the site?
Well, the ones I highlighted, which is why I pulled those out as opposed to the engineering comments on the drainage, and some of those are very important to the site, but the dumpster access and that parking issue, actually and the attorney can advise us to the proper timing on the easement language for that cross-access and actually putting that easement on, the access is shown, but it should be labeled as an easement on the approved site plan. I think that that is appropriate to have done at site plan. I don't think it's appropriate to have done at CO. I think that the explanation here was very powerful as to why it's problematic to wait till CO. You have a multi-million-dollar building constructed and you're holding it up for an easement. So,
Yeah. Kim,
I
do you
said
have-
prior to
do you have a
signature
view on
The easement
that?
language is not a hard thing to figure out. Like I said before, I've done lots of them, he's done lots of them. The drafting it is not the issue. I think it's just, I'm gonna have to try to get in touch with the property owner next door and try to get them to
Yeah.
look at it.
And that's the other thing we can offer up, you know,
Mhm.
not that it's gonna do any good, but I will try my best to shake the tree and see if the other property owner falls out. and
Understand
can
what
be
I'm
with you.
saying? I'm not
So,
saying prior to CO, I'm saying prior to signature of
The
plans.
plans.
yeah.
That's a
Okay.
significant difference. You probably should have done that with the movie theater. But, anyway.
All right. I think that we've got marching orders here, so we know what we need to do. I don't need a motion to move on, Kim, do I?
No.
Now we just move on to the
No,
next.
it's just work session, we'll
We
go on
just
to the
need
next
to move
one.
on to the next one. Thank you. RRFACF.
So just, it's John Bennett for the applicant, and the principals, the Fowlers, are here with me, as is Bailey Larkin. Just want to remind the board, this is a continued public hearing pursuant to an application for preliminary approval. Just going over some of the changes, there were some concerns that bless you, a portion of the ag reserve was burdened by a driveway and landscaping easement that was on Mr. McMaster's client's property. As we discussed, we kept the same size of the ag easement and just we took some square footage out of lot number 1 and lot number 2. So the ag reserve was shifted slightly to the south to ensure that the ag reserve remained identical, but we took the driveway and landscaping easement out of the ag reserve. One of the big bones of contention throughout this project, and again, today I die, I will tell you with absolute moral certainty that this is a unconstitutional taking, but we have agreed to allow pond maintenance, and the board did ask that we, towards the end of the pond maintenance area, that we fan it out in effect so that work could be done. We would simply, I think we did we say that language about having if that is utilized for any sort of maintenance or access, that it be restored, because that area is in an area where there's supposed to be a vegetated buffer. So that's important. And again, that's an easement for the trustees of the commonalty and freeholders of the town of Southampton that owns Phillips Pond, as well as the village. Limited access. It's a non-exclusive easement, which obviously means the landowner can utilize it. The ultimate owner of that lot, or anybody else that the property owner gives access to, but it would be for the trustees and for the village, not for general public access. So we don't want people down there using it for recreation or anything like that. It's solely for access to the pond for maintenance and testing. Site disturbance was raised by the board. We included on October 14th a site disturbance map. The erosion and sediment control plan submitted depicts proposed project limiting fencing, material and equipment storage areas within the property during construction. We checked the Dropbox. We didn't see any further comments from H2M, nor any additional opposition, which would have to been filed by 12 today. There was some discussion over the terms of the agricultural reserve document that I had with council before the last meeting. And I'll let council inform you about that. It's essentially going to be 301 in the Ag and Markets Law, which is what just about every. It's problematic to do anything other than that. There was a request that even though composting is mentioned in the Agricultural and Markets Law, we would agree to restrict composting for use on this property or other farms owned or controlled by entities related to the grantor.
But you would allow composting for, right?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
allow it.
my
You just
apologies. Yes,
just no,
allow.
not for commercial use,
Not for
right?
commercial, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
even though composting is part of agriculture, people have a concern about it because if not done the right way, it can be problematic. So that was a specific request. So as long as the composting it would just be limited to composting for this property or on one of a farm, because there's a farm right across the street, owned or controlled by entities related to the grantors, its successors, and the signs. There was some talk about a view shed. Again, we remind everybody that this is a voluntary cluster. This site plan is specifically by this property is because of the how long it's been filed, is specifically grandfathered from the mandatory cluster sections that now appear in the village code. Nevertheless, we've continued to maintain, mandatory ag open space, requirements in the village code. So we're there. I do want to remind everybody, and this will roll into my next comment, that agricultural, it's properly, they're agricultural parcels is what they are. They're to be used for agriculture. They don't have the same, I mean, it's very nice when people think about, people drive by these properties and get so upset when a structure goes up, because guess what? It's not like open space up in the moraine where you're not supposed to touch it. The purpose is to maintain, and there are great public policies for it, is to maintain agriculture on the site. So there was some talk about opening up a view shed. It's scratching my head. We grow privet on the property, okay? So we're not inclined to open up any sort of view shed. We did provide with a landscape plan that runs essentially from the corner of Wickapog Road and Fowler Street, approximately 175 feet down Fowler. This has been a long process. We've been extremely accommodative. This lot has, I keep on saying this because the inherent mitigation to anyone who is looking at this in a fair, as opposed to a selfish manner, anyone who's looking at this in a fair manner, the inherent mitigation in this property is zoned for 12 lots. It's zoned for 12 lots. We submitted a 10-lot plan. The board asked us if there was any voluntary density reduction that we could agree to, and we're down to 7. So that's 5 lots, even though we had many meetings with brokers who told us that the 10 lots would result in a much higher value. But we're down to 7 lots, public access, very similar, and even more. The The Halsey property, not the Halsey property on the other side of Phillips Pond, but the Halsey property across the street, don't be deceived by that. That is a standard subdivision lots that happens to have an open space parcel on the front. But what you're looking at, if you stand at the Fowler Farm and look across the street to the Halsey Farm, more than half of that open space that you're seeing are buildable lots. So we've been extremely, extremely patient on this. We've been extremely accommodative, and we simply ask that after you hear any further public comment, you close the hearing.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for a 2-minute recess here. Apologize, but if everyone just stand by for 2 minutes, okay? Excuse me, sir.
Which way is this?
Yeah, you can't speak on Zoom unless you.
The one thing Alan, who's not here tonight, unfortunately, made a comment at our last meeting that I was hoping that no one really responded to on the applicant side, that I was hoping we'd get a response or at least some discussion of. Would you care to respond to that?
I adore that man. I really do. I think he's an incredible treasure to the planning board, and he thinks out of the box a lot. But if he was here, I would say it to him. I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't. If you could sort of help me along with that, because I'm not so sure. He seems to be talking about the concern that what happens when if the Fowler family that's been farming this in the adjacent properties for years is no longer farming it. And the answer to that is the answer to every single situation where we find ourselves, where a farm is going to be an agricultural reserve set aside. It runs with the land. It has to be farmed. It can't be used for non-farming purposes. The only carve out on this one is there's a pre-existing ag labor cottage on the property. I think the easement that we propose says if for some reason in a given year it's not being actively farmed, it has to be planted with a cover crop. All those sort of things that typically happen. I don't know, I can't, what I sense was Alan would feel comfortable if in perpetuity the Fowler was going to farm the property, but you know,
I think we'd all be comfortable
Yeah,
with that, but I'm not
yeah,
sure that was what Alan was
What was he
was
saying?
ta-
How
was
did you
saying.
hear it, Mark?
I heard it as, and I thought it was a really interesting point, if I heard it correctly, which was to the extent that this parcel
right.
would be developed and the parcel across the street would be developed in a similar structure, even though that's a town, not a village issue. For all intents and purposes, you know, other than two small reserves, agriculture reserves, it's not really being farmed anymore. You know, what happens then? Which I think is a good planning question, and I was just interested if there was a response to that.
Well, let's think about this. Your village code requires that even if the village code was governing on open space, was governing this parcel, which is not,
Right.
it would require 25% open space. Across the street on the town, on a 2-acre parcel, I think it's 45 or 50%. Okay.
Oh, on a two-acre parcel, or
Across the street, the zoning is either R120 or
we're talking about the Fowler property?
The Fowler property.
Yeah, on the other
across
side of
street.
Fowler
Yeah.
Street, yeah, okay.
Right across the street.
Yep.
It's going to be either in a CR120 or an R120 or an R80. You know this R80 or R120? One of the two. But the town has higher cluster requirements.
Yeah.
I mean, to the extent that that's of comfort, but I'm certainly not going to tie the parcels together.
No.
I don't, you can't require me to do that. You can only do, let me say this, if I can, with an enormous amount of respect. One of my favorite quotes comes out of a Wall Street Journal editorial that says, unfortunately, bureaucrats oftentimes enforce the law the way they wish it was as opposed to the way it is. So your village has given you certain tools. One of the tools is this open space requirement, which again, we're grandfathered from, but we're giving it to you.
Yep.
And when I say open space, it's not, open space in an agricultural use is not the same as open space up in the moraine. You get to use it because there are two reasons. And one of them, as important as anything, is to encourage agricultural production, the 301 in the Ag and Markets Law. And all those ag reserve documents, every one that you see, allow structures and buildings, because you need that to perform agriculture. I mean, you know, the property was farmed for years with potatoes. Who would have thought you'd see privet farms? But that's what makes the most sense. And actually, it's a good thing because oftentimes it creates less dust and all that sort of things. But I don't know how to respond to Alan.
I think and again, we're I don't want to talk for Alan. I'm
Yeah.
kind of
What is
hoping I understood completely what his concerns were, but since he's not here, so we just get them out and air them out. But I think that where he was headed for what's left over after this parcel and adjacent parcels are developed, there are infinite uses for the ag reserve. And I know 301 of Ag and Markets Law allows that, right? But and I heard your quote too, so I understand that, but I'm talking for Alan now. I think that possibly made him a little uncomfortable that, you know, there are uses that might be that he could envision that there's a discussion of whether there's really room for that.
Well, remember, we have to come back to you for site plan approval.
Yeah, I understand that.
which
Yeah.
is I mean, there are some municipalities where for an ag building, you get a building permit.
Yeah.
Some municipalities where you
Yeah.
just get a letter from the building inspector because under these right to farm laws operations, but you do have continual control over it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we sort of gave that to you. The way I read the Southampton Village Code for a farm building, I just need a building permit. But we specifically said, because of your concerns.
No, I recall that. I think
Yeah,
we,
any change in buildings or whatever the heck it is, we have to come back to you for site plan approval,
Yeah.
which I think is huge. I mean, to me, that's the best
yeah.
that I should be required to do.
No, I appreciate that. You know, Alan's been on the planning board a long time. He's
Absolutely.
the most experienced of
Absolutely.
the five of us here. So,
Absolutely.
I want to make sure if he raises an issue that we properly address it. And I think that the conclusion that I came to was similar to yours, that you do have to come back for site plan approval, and hopefully that gets Alan more comfortable with this. But I did want to establish a placeholder for, he did have a good question last meeting, and hopefully we've answered it.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I have to come back to you. And again, as I've said, I'm not aware that for a farm building or a farm structure, leaving aside stuff on preserved farmland, on a farm where there are no development rights, or just a regular farm, or a farm or a covenant. Most covenants don't require that. I'm
Yeah.
going to come back to you.
Yeah. The other thing I think there's some what lacks clarity is the intentions with the little cottage there. Is it your intention to go back to the ZBA to get a?
Nope. If you read the ZBA decision, it says a couple of things, and Bailey, you know it better than I do, but I'll say it. What it says is if on a subdivision of the property, this ag housing, because it is ag housing, can't be on a separate residential lot. If you're carving this subdivision, creating a subdivision, you can't put that ag housing on a separate residential lot.
No, with another house.
With another house, I'm sorry, with
Mhm.
another house.
I don't-
So the fear, I suppose, was that it would turn out to be a guest house on a residential use. So
There were I think 5 or 6 bullet points there in that decision, and the one that in my mind clouds the issue is number 6.
what does number 6 say?
It
You
says.
have to read them in conjunction with them.
Yeah, so
And also you have to remember, this is really, really, really important, because that's why the board was struggling with it. Unlike the town of Southampton, where if you look at agricultural uses and permitted accessory uses, agricultural housing on a parcel zone for agricultural housing is a permitted use. The village code of the Village of Southampton doesn't have that. So that's important, because this will be the only piece of agricultural housing on the ag reserve property. I can't put another one there.
Yeah.
But what does 6 say? It's weird.
it's weird because the
Yeah.
whole decision says that the cottage is deemed accessory to the farm used,
Yep.
and it says it even in the minutes, and it says it can't be considered accessory to the residential use. I'm fine, so I get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fine, it all is clear. And then number 6.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah, any residential use in the broadest sense of the cottage shall be discontinued upon approval of a subdivision of the subject parcel. And then it goes on to say lot number 4 on the aforesaid.
Because this was the larger subdivision.
Because it says that on your subdivision map, it says it's known as lot 2.
Kim, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
The only thing that I can say to you is that
So
And
so
Mr.
my
and-
question is, does this
Yeah.
ZBA decision apply?
I don't believe so.
Because they're referencing different subdivision lot numbers.
So lot number 4 was since subdivided, and that lot number
Oh.
4 with the cottage on it is now lot number 2 of a later subdivision.
Okay, so, say that again, Alex?
So the property was subdivided twice, or once
Okay.
since that was written. So what was
Okay.
the large lot number 4 has become a little bit smaller
And now it's
and was
two.
lot number 2 of a later subdivision.
And the key to the question, the answer to the question is that, and provided counsel with all sorts of authority on this, that a residential use and a accessory ag labor use is not a residential use. Now, Mr. Bragman and I just litigated a case where a court held to the contrary on a very specific set of facts. We filed a notice of appeal on that. We think that the case doesn't make any sense given a lot of history of that issue out here. But there's plenty of authority that states that within the ambit of a residential use is not an accessory ag housing use.
Say it one more time.
An accessory ag housing is not a residential use.
As
So you're
the,
gonna have to struggle with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
I completely struggle with this. As
Yeah,
the
I know.
only lawyer, the only non-lawyer up here, right? I like clarity, and
Well-
it just doesn't seem so clear to me. So my
Well,
only
I've
suggestion
given-
is,
I've
if,
given you- I'm sorry.
my only suggestion is, this is one of those things that I sure would appreciate some clarity on.
Okay, but that doesn't,
However you choose to solve that
yeah,
problem.
yeah, but that can be
I'm
dealt
not-
with one way or the other.
Yeah,
That doesn't suggest you shouldn't close the hearing. That's all I'm saying.
I understand that
Yeah.
we can deal with that, but that's just one of the questions that I'd like to have more clarity on before we get to the finish line.
That's a
on this
concern. We're gonna have to meet that concern.
Yeah, there are a number of other things that we need to see on the preliminary subdivision map, which Lisa is going to review for us.
So it goes back to the original comment letter of January 30th, 2025. Some of the items just clarifications. There are a few things that I wanted to discuss with the board just to verify whether they were required, because I don't think not all of them are necessary. But the updated plans still didn't have all the detailed drainage information, so I just want to highlight that according to the design standards in Article 10, that the subdivision should provide drainage plan that covers the entire holding, including drainage plan that the current drainage plan just covers the roadway area, and that the drainage calculations have not been provided for the overall subdivision. That said, I do want to highlight that I think that in this particular configuration of large lots, it is reasonable to, as opposed to a small lot subdivision where most likely you would require a sump or some kind of lot-wide containment, it would be an appropriate situation to deal with the drainage on a lot-by-lot basis. But I did want to highlight that because that was an original comment that has not had any change. That is consistent with the original submission. There's no drainage provided for the full lot. That said, we most likely would want to condition that on building permit, appropriate drainage would be provided for each lot. A SWIP is required for this subdivision, so that we have not seen yet, and so no SWIP has been submitted and no SWIP has been reviewed at this time. I know that there's still some, I have a minor comment, which was that I think that it's still in this, it was in this original letter, but I think the recommended minimum centerline radius for the street curve should be 200 feet on a local street. It's 175 currently. I don't know of any code that would require a private held road to be different, so that's probably a minor thing that can be corrected. That was on that original memo back January 30th when we first reviewed the subdivision, and there wasn't a change in the new submission. Just looking back, invert elevations were not provided, relatively minor correction there. And let me just see if there's any other details. And then one other thing, which I know that I think Kim was going to speak on a little bit, which was the easement for the access, which is great, it's showing that. I just wanted to mention that since that will be a private road, the roadway needs to be included as part of the easement, because it's not
It's not a
otherwise.
village road?
uh,
It's not gonna be taken into
It's
the
not going to be
village?
taken by the village. It's my understanding that it's a private road that's going to be under an HOA for those homes, which means there's not a presumed access for the village there.
No, it's shown on the map. If I own a lot on a map, by force of law, if I own a lot on a map, I have access over the road shown on the map, period. I don't
Oh, you mean
understand
lot
the point.
6 does, the lot that the easement's gonna be over?
I don't understand the comment.
So-
John, the question is, how does the village get from Fowler Street to the easement that comes
Oh,
off
I'm
the traffic
sorry.
circle?
Oh, sorry,
You
yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
include that, yeah,
Yes,
of course.
okay.
I didn't understand. I thought you meant for the lots generally.
No, the
Yeah,
lots
yeah,
are
we
fine.
can include that, of course.
I meant there was the 200-foot contours also, which I don't think we are critical, right?
That's the standard centerline radius for a street curve in the village.
Not,
Wait, the 204, that was another highlighted in the original comments, which I don't think is actually necessary. But you do require for subdivisions that topographic contours extend 200 feet beyond the boundaries of the subdivision unless waived by the planning board. So they're not provided. And in this case, I don't think they're going to be providing us with any information that would change, the nature of the evaluation of the site, so I don't think it's necessary. But that was on the list because it was something that was not included, that was stipulated that the planning board would have to waive the requirement.
and then what about the buffer at the north end of the property?
So the buffer, so this is a subdivision plan, not a site plan, so I don't think there's anything that the buffer needs to be physically added to the subdivision plan, because that's not the place for it. But I think they're sharing currently the buffer plan here. I don't know if we can
That's great.
bring it up on the screen.
You could make that a condition, I would assume you can.
Yeah, we can condition this, so I guess the question for the planning board is just to look at that and
Yep.
if that is, this is what was presented, I think, at sketch plan approval or at some point.
We modified it after that.
Yeah, we filed as part of this also.
Yeah, it's part of this application, but there were some modifications.
So this one here is the latest?
That's the
Yep, okay.
Yeah, it's not.
All right, that was the only other thing I wanted to see.
Can you see?
I got it,
It-
thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, so this, I think, could be definitely a condition of subdivision approval. We wouldn't put it on the subdivision itself,
Put it in
but it'd be a
covenant.
separate plan.
I've seen buffer plans and covenants, requirements and covenants.
Yeah, and then the last item, because I do want to represent the interests of absent board members, is Amanda's view on this one. I just, as a placeholder, we're not deciding that
I
one.
didn't say anything.
I just, Amanda can't be here to speak for herself, so I will speak for her. Okay. All right, Hannah, anything else?
No, other than Amanda's point about a view shed just over the area that's being farmed, in the ag reserve. If the privet could be cut down, not totally, but to at least allow people to see that there is a farm.
What they'll see is that there's another privet.
Yeah. So,
Well,
I mean,
I know that, but
but I think that's, she's borrowing a page from I don't want to speak for her, but as I understand it, she's borrowing a page from the approval for the Halsey property, kitty corner, where there's a max height on that privet over there. I'm not here to
Yeah, no,
argue
they
for
got a
Amanda, I'm
max
just
yield
here to,
subdivision over there.
as a placeholder.
They got a max yield subdivision.
Yeah, okay. Bill, anything?
No.
Okay, Alex, good?
I know the board had asked for that area that's labeled as a proposed wetlands buffer. I think it asked for some draft language about what's being regulated in that area.
Non-disturbance for the the area right here.
Well, that'll be part of a covenant. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's shown on the map.
Yep.
Remember, notes, configurations, setbacks, restrictions, requirements shown on the subdivision map have the same force, exact same force as a covenant. We'll put it in a covenant also, the buffer areas, but we'll put it in a covenant also, as you should require, but
Yep.
it's there.
All right. Lisa, did you want to add anything else?
On the subdivision in general or on this particular question?
Both.
I think that, the key issues that are, there, other than a couple of minor, well, the SWIP is a major undertaking. That's a major engineering comment that we don't have that yet. But the other than those fairly minor, I think they've agreed to most of the conditions as in terms of things like the landscape buffer and handling it that way. There are some questions about the language of the easement for the ag reserve that's still being, Kim is working on, as well as the easement for access and maintenance, including that driveway. But that's pretty much the bulk of my comments at this time.
Okay. Kim, anything?
No, I'm still working on the easement language.
Yep.
And the access easement, they're going to do the access off of Fowler. And, yeah,
Okay.
as far as my legal documents.
Do you know, I wish I had $1 for every final conditional approval, not even preliminary conditional approvals, but we're happy to do it as a condition to preliminary approval, submissions of certificates, submission of CNRs, submission of easements to be approved by the municipal attorney. Those are conditions in approvals. Because again, the timing and where these things occur are very important. You don't hold up a closing of a preliminary hearing or a preliminary approval for that matter for these sort of things. They're all going to be conditions which I'm going to have to meet before I can move on to the final application.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Public hearing's still open. Are there any other comments?
We didn't receive any within that period.
Good evening, Jacqueline Roggerello from Lynn Gartner Dunn Fragenti and Ranke on behalf of the neighboring property 91 Fowler. I just ask, there was some discussion last time. I know that we're working on agricultural easement language and maintenance easement language, and I believe there was some discussion about an engineer's report, and I just ask that if and when those things are prepared, that they be provided for the public to review in an amount of time, perhaps like a week or so beforehand, so that we have time to review and provide meaningful comment at the next meeting or whenever it becomes available.
So my comment to that is, your client's not a party to any of these legal agreements. I'm more than capable of drafting easement and declaration language with the board. I don't know, I've been practicing almost 30 years. I've never had any of my legal agreements approved by third parties. So I will be handling that, and we're still working on that.
And certainly, I'm not suggesting that it would require any kind of approval or anything from a neighboring property, but just as part of the subdivision application, materials that are going towards that application, that they be provided to the public for review and comment in the public hearing context. That's all.
Can I be heard on that?
I would only say, do you let third parties review any of your legal documentation? People who are not parties to your documentation?
Well, these type of documents would be part of the public record, are they not? Where I'd be able to foil them afterwards?
Usually they're you would be able to forward after they're recorded, but
Sure.
I'm not negotiating these agreements with the public. I'm negotiating with the parties. The parties are the village, the trustees on the Phillips Pond, and the applicant.
Completely understood. And I think if this is part of the application that the board is reviewing and considering as part of approval for this subdivision application. Again, I just ask that any of that documentation be available for public review and comment in a public hearing setting. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Kim, ordinarily, are those agreements placed in the file?
I've only seen them issued as a condition of preliminary or final approval. I was a municipal attorney myself many years ago, and those were negotiated between the parties to the agreement. And once it was negotiated, the applicant files it and records it.
And that's when they become public?
Yes.
Okay, understood. John?
Thank you.
I was the planning board attorney from the town of Southampton from 1980 until 1988 until 1990. I was special counsel to this village on land use matters, and I will tell you without fear of contradiction that public comment on covenants and restrictions and agricultural easements is not part of the process. They are conditions on final or preliminary approvals, and then they are worked out to the satisfaction of counsel for this board and the board members.
Good, thank you. It sounds like you and Kim agree on this. Please step up, Mr. Bragman.
Jeff Bragman for the neighbor to the Fowler property.
Is that Albright, Jeff?
I'm sorry?
Albright?
Spider is the, I can show you where it is on the map.
Oh, no, I just wanted the name. I'm sorry, say that again. Spider?
The owner's name is Spider. It's in an
Cider,
LLC.
okay.
It's an LLC.
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett often says he talks without contradiction and can tell you what planning board attorneys do.
John, please, all right? Only one speaker at a time. I want to remind everyone, there's only one person speaking at a time. And
So I'm here to contradict that as a prior planning and zoning board attorney. I think this discussion slightly misses the point. The conditions that will control the ag reserve in particular have not yet been elucidated on the record by the board. We don't know what you're going to do. You haven't come to a decision on it. I mean, I can remember a couple months ago, there was a discussion about whether or not the access would remain the same with an in and out driveway, and there was an unresolved discussion about what would happen there. There's never been a resolution, as you saw tonight, as we heard tonight, about what's going to happen to the house. And we disagree with Mr. Bennett's interpretation of the zoning board condition. We think that house has to go. This is a new lot created by subdivision. It's fully within the zoning board decision that was rendered some years ago. You haven't decided that. So this isn't a question of two private parties negotiating an easement. This is a question of a planning board with a responsibility and the power to decide the facts and conditions, some of which were raised by Alan McFarland in the last meeting, which have not been resolved. And we, as members of the public and neighbors, have a right to hear how the board reaches a decision on the substance of these easements, not only the easement, but especially the ag easement, as well as the access easement. This is not something that you just hand off behind closed doors. You're not allowed to do that. You have open meetings requirement on your decision-making, and we're entitled to hear how and what you decide on those easements. And I might add, the ag easement does present a significant issue that McFarland was talking about. I'm not sure it was as cogently stated as it could have been. But yes, there are buildings that can serve agriculture, but there's some questions about what will happen if the Fowlers are no longer in business. What's going to happen? Because you've got commercial uses on that property. And this board, in granting or denying or modifying whatever you're going to do, you have to anticipate long-range, you're required under secret to look at long-range impacts. Some of those impacts are what's going to happen. Like, can they just suddenly, could they change some of the commercial uses there and start selling equipment? And the idea that this house is, Mr. Bennett accurately said he lost the case on this issue where he distinguished worker housing from residential housing. Lost the case. Another practical issue is you got 3 acres of land. You don't need residential housing for workers to work 3 acres of land, because I think 3 acres is the developed side, the remaining is 4 acres. You don't need worker housing to work 4 acres of
Can I
agriculture.
interrupt right there, please? Because the agricultural housing, as I understand it, supports agricultural workers for both the village parcel, the town parcel across the street, and another Fowler parcel north.
Well, that presents an interesting question, and if you decide that, we want to hear the decision and have a record of how you came to that decision. There's a sensible argument to suggest that it's not a very good precedent in the village to create buildings, commercial uses on property A to serve disparate properties around the village. I'm not sure that's a great idea, particularly, especially given the existence of a prior zoning board decision that said no residential uses in the broadest definition. And basically, what you're talking about, but haven't decided on a record in a transparent way, is, oh, well, maybe we'll let them use it as ag housing, but it'll be ag housing for a property 1,000 feet away or a half a mile away. And that's something that we, as members of the public and the neighboring property owners, have a right to hear you discuss and decide. Then it can go to the attorneys. And when the attorneys discuss it, and there's a record of how you decided, and we know what was behind your substantive decision because it may be subject to review in another place, in another forum, then yes, the attorneys can discuss it between themselves and bring it back. But you can't isolate a part of your review from public input, transparency, and the knowledge of how you reached a decision and the knowledge of what you reached as a decision. And that precedes handing it over to your attorneys. The fact that you've got an attorney involved does not eliminate the obligation to act transparently, to have open meetings, and to create a record that's reviewable on appeal. Thank you.
Can I respond, please, because this is a lot of hogwash, and it's totally contrary. If Mr. Bragman has any problems, he has his remedy elsewhere. The easement is going to talk about 301 of the Ag and Markets Law, with the exceptions of what we talked about in terms of composting and limiting our rights under the Ag and Markets Law. He doesn't have comments on an easement are not part of this process. Mr. Bragman's talking about seeker now. I guess he forgets that the board issued a negative declaration, so I don't know why he's talking about the State Environmental Quality Review Act. If Mr. Bragman has concerns with any of your procedures, which have been more than proper, he keeps on saying, you can't. Well, guess what? He's not the authority, is he? Just because he says you can't do something means nothing. I'm talking to you about years and years and years of practice. We know what's going to happen on that ag reserve parcel. It's going to be restricted pursuant to Section 301 of the Ag and Markets Law. And we've even offered to give you a restriction that isn't part of 301 of the Ag and Markets Law. We've also talked about the fact that it's going to be subject to planning board approval. What else is there to talk about? Nothing, other than a thank you for doing something other than the broad 301 of the Ag and Markets Law, taking away composting and doing something that the village code doesn't require us to do, which is to come to you for site plan approval. And the determination on the ag housing, it's all out in the open. You're either going to say yes or no to it. If Mr. Bragman doesn't like the answer, he has his remedy. But now it's time to close this hearing.
I will say, I know I've come here late in the game. This has been going on some time, but I did watch the previous videos and the meetings. The board didn't hide the fact that this was going to be an agricultural reserve. They I mean, I watched maybe 4 of the past videos, and it was discussed at each of those meetings. So there's nothing they're being transparent, they're not hiding anything. It's going to be an agricultural reserve that will be used pursuant to agricultural markets law. And I can't speak to the House yet because I haven't made a decision on that. But I don't see that this board has been trying to be anything less than transparent at the meetings that I observed on TV, and this is only my second meeting, but I feel it's been discussed at the last one and this one now ad nauseum. So
Anything? No. Yep. Hannah? Okay. I'm going to thank you for the comments, everyone, both sides. I'd like to hold the public hearing open at least until all 5 are present, so that's at least another meeting. And in the meantime, the things that Lisa's looking for, hopefully we get before that, or with need before that meeting.
She said that she was.
a drainage plan, was that one of them, Lisa?
We got it.
For the entire subdivision? I just
review
saw
that
one for the
again?
road.
Yeah,
So I'll summarize the things from this memo that there's just a couple items other than the SWIP, which I guess could be conditioned on the final subdivision approval.
Thank you.
But it was really a question to the board with your level of comfort, but I was advising that I did not think, they did not provide drainage for the full lot, but we could deal with that with the condition as opposed to making them show that at this stage.
A condition that is for every house that's going to be built, you have to show it, yeah.
Yeah, because each lot would then be responsible for its own drainage, because they're not.
When they come in for building permit, for
When they
the
come in for building
individual,
permit, yeah.
right?
So, traditionally for subdivisions, it's dealt with at the subdivision level, but in this case with the larger lots, they're.
Lisa, can I
it
ask
seems doable.
what did they ask for as far as the drainage for the entire subdivision? I'm just trying to follow.
You mean, what does Article X design standards ask for?
I'm sorry?
You're saying what does the code ask for? It
No,
asks.
I mean the comment that I know you still have to type it up, you just got
Well,
'em.
so these are still the comments from January 30th.
Oh, okay.
But they're just highlighted for which ones were resolved and which ones were outstanding. The proposed street and lot layout and drainage plan shall cover the entire holding of the subdivider. The drainage plan currently only covers the road areas. And then as a subsequent follow-up to that, for this preliminary storm water drainage system plan, it says drainage calculations have not been provided for the overall subdivision. The applicant should indicate how stormwater will be managed for the individual lots. There is a comment now on the subdivision indicating that they will deal with it at building permit on a lot-by-lot basis. So if the board if that is sufficient, I can put in a little summary memo. There are a couple of small points on this engineering memo about invert elevations and the centerline radius. And
what about the question?
and I
of,
can summarize the
Sorry.
the conditions we've discussed.
Yeah, I mean, this has always been referred to as a 7-lot development, but isn't it a 7-lot development plus an ag reserve? Isn't that an 8-lot development technically?
It's
It's
not 8
eight
Does it
residential lots.
Say
It's
again?
not 8 residential lots.
But 7 residential.
It's not 8 residential lots, it's 7 residential lots and an agricultural reserve area.
Does it need to be differentiated with a finer point than that?
Is there a distinction that would be helpful in the planning process to make a different distinction?
Well, subdivision lots don't have, only residential lots have lot numbers.
No, that's not true. If you subdivide a lot, you have a lot number for each subdivision. If you're dividing a commercial lot, you would also have lot 1 and lot 2.
No. But that doesn't respond to my statement. If you're providing an agricultural reserve area, it doesn't have a lot number on it. It just says ag reserve. It doesn't have lot 1, 2, 3, 4. It's commercial. I would agree with you, but it's not a commercial lot. It's not a commercial lot. It's not, the zoning is not
That
commercial.
question came up, if that's.
So
if-
I don't know
if
that,
you
that
agree-
that's the practice. I've never heard of that before, but I just, from a understanding of what's happening at the site, it's been confusing amongst members of the board that the 7-lot distinction when it's divided into 8 pieces, and there are 7 of those lots are residential subdivisions, and 1 of those lots is agricultural reserve. But the sum total is you're going from 1 lot to 8 lots.
And I think it's a little bit unclear because that the agricultural reserve area is not coterminous with that 8th lot because of that easement area that's been called out. So I think just it would be a little bit clearer on the plans
Yeah,
that
if we
way.
can, there's not a big issue, but let's just try and clear this up so there's less confusion on this. Also, the easements drafts that we saw came early this afternoon, and I want to make sure that all the board members have an opportunity to review those before we close the public hearing. So I'm going to roll this public hearing. Do I need a motion? I don't need a
Can I
motion, we're just
understand what
open.
you're talking about with the lot numbers, please? I have no idea what you're
Can
talking
you
about.
talk to
Been doing
Ken?
this,
Can
no,
you-
I'd like to know what the concern is. I've been doing this subdivision work, not only of municipal, but myself privately, for almost 40 years. I've never heard this before. It's not, we're dividing it into 7 residential lots. If one was a commercial lot, your point would be well taken, but it's not. It's an agricultural reserve area. But what would you like us to put on the map? I'm not gonna call it a lot. It's not a lot. It's an ag reserve area. Because if I take that into the health department and ask them to stamp it, they're gonna say, what are you trying to do? Get a residential lot out of this ag reserve?
There is some confusion in the advice that the board is getting on this issue from our experts. I
No
want to
confusion
clear,
in my
I'd
mind.
like to have it cleared up so that there's no confusion in that advice that comes to us.
If
going
I
forward.
call this a lot, when I go to get it approved by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services Bureau of Wastewater Management, they're gonna say to me, what are you trying to sneak in another residential lot there?
You guys work it out, okay? We don't need to work.
All you have to do is look at
We don't need to work.
tax maps.
We don't need to work that out here.
Okay.
So I'm going to roll this hearing to our next meeting, when by then all the board members will have had an opportunity to review the draft easements and everything else, and we'll see you in 2 weeks on that one. Thank you. Site plan reviews. So at our last meeting, we gave notice to 2 applicants, 865 Merrick Holdings and 74 White Street, that they need.
I'm here for 865.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
yay.
Please continue.
Surprise.
Rick Wisnowski from the Rayner Group for the applicant for 22 Windmill. I think I was here last in July, perhaps, July or June, to just give you an update. Now the update is that we're still working on trying to figure out what to do with rotation sanitary system, because as it is now, 22 Windmill and 32 Windmill share the sanitary system.
Yeah.
Based on information from Shippey's sanitary system, we can lower, the health department accepted a lower groundwater elevation. So that eliminates our need on 22 for the retaining wall that we had in the front area.
So it's no longer a raised.
We can keep it at the grade that it is now, basically.
And what did the health department accept as the depth?
6.8 as the highest expected groundwater. That's what they accepted on Shippey's. They had made us use 9.3. I think it was like an outlier number, perhaps, because there's a well like right by the former Rite Aid, I guess.
And that's the one they're using.
That's what got approved from Shippey's. So
Okay.
when we did our test hole there, we got, I think, it at a similar number, 6.7 or something. But then they had this
This
other.
is a test hole on the property, or is it a test hole using the Rite Aid, or about?
No, we did two.
up by the
We've done 2
park?
test holes on our property.
Got it.
There was one done back in like 2016, I think,
Yeah.
before we were involved, and then we did another one in 2022, perhaps.
Okay.
So that eliminates, that retaining wall in the front. I guess the issue now is we don't really have any room for rotations sanitary. I think we're going to have to put it on ours where we originally proposed some of our roof drainage to be. So I think we're going to have to move that probably into the parking lot, which is already, we proposed pervious asphalt for that with a 9-inch gravel base to capture, to not have as much runoff from the pavement area. Basically, that's the issues that we're working through right now.
Timing?
We're hoping to get an application into the health department in the next week or so for rotations. We've had some issues working with rotations and getting their approval because as it stands for him, he's got no issue with what's going on now, and he doesn't see a reason to upgrade his system when it's it doesn't affect him, obviously. So we need some maybe financial help with that. Maybe we'll go for a grant with the town with their CPF grants, to do the rotations aspect of it. But basically everything on 22 is with the health department is good to go. They're just waiting for us to deal with 32.
Okay. Any questions? We like to keep the agenda organized and clean, so anytime you have an update,
Yeah.
once every 3 or 4 meetings, it would be good if we just knew what was
Okay.
happening.
Yeah, I can
to keep this
send
on
an
the
update
agenda,
to.
'cause otherwise, we're going to move it off, and then you have to start over, which you
Right.
don't
No.
want- you don't want
Absolutely
that.
understood.
You don't want that to happen. Okay.
I guess so. Is it going to be off for the next couple though, or
When would you like us to put it back on?
I could probably give you an update on the December 15th meeting.
So would you like us to adjourn it until the 15th?
Yeah,
That's
if
fine.
possible. Yeah.
Okay. So no need to come before then, right? As long as we know?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah, and I
you'll
can
be
give you an
here,
update.
but you'll be
That we
here
make
on
a
the-
submission, and if we're working with.
Right, if we're going to adjourn on the 15th, then you should be here to give us an update.
Yes, we'll do.
Okay. All right,
Absolutely.
Good deal. All right, motion to adjourn 8:06, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Motion to adjourn 865 Merrick, 22 Windmill Lane, until our December 15th meeting.
Second
All in
motion.
favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. 74 White Street, I understand they're also navigating the health department process, but they need to give us an update
That's right.
by
I
our
did.
next meeting. I know you've had some conversations with them, Alex.
Yes, I reached out at the board's request after the last meeting to ask for an update, letting the applicant know that if they didn't provide one, they were at risk of having the application dismissed due to inactivity. I have not heard a
And the
response to
was
this.
crickets.
Yes, so
Okay,
far.
so, all right, they need to give us an update or give you an update prior to our next meeting. So we'll adjourn 74 White Street to our next meeting, which is Monday. Our motion to adjourn 74 White Street to our next meeting on November 7th.
Second
15th.
motion.
Thank you all in favor?
Aye.
But,
And I'll let them know that if there's no update by then, it'll likely be dismissed at that meeting.
yeah, perfect, thank you. Everybody ready to approve minutes? Everybody reviewed the minutes? Yeah, okay. Motion to approve the October 6th minutes. Second,
Second motion.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And motion to approve the October 20th minutes.
Second
Thank you,
motion.
Hannah. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And I think that's everything. Do you have anything else? Anybody?
Nope,
Okay,
I think that's all we
motion
have.
to adjourn the meeting then. Second, thank you.
Second
All in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, everyone.